Hi, welcome to What's Happening. Here are the top 5 stories. At number 5, President Muhammadu Buhari has said that Vice President Yemi Osibanjo will be in charge of governance in the country as he departs for London for medical checkup. The president disclosed this while speaking to State House correspondents on Sunday, shortly before his trip to the UK. He said Osibanjo would be assisted by the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Boss Mustafa, and the Chief of Staff, Ibrahim Gambari. Buhari assured that his presence from the country would not affect the running of the government. At number 4, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Geoffrey Onyema, has announced that Nigeria will on Monday begin the evacuation of students stuck in Sumy, Ukraine. The minister announced this in a tweet on Sunday evening. However, Mr. Onyema noted that a major challenge to the evacuation is how to transport the students out of Sumy. He wrote, "The big challenge is procuring buses. We are doing everything to make it happen." Great commitment by Nigerian ambassador to Ukraine, Shina Alege. At number 3, the Lagos State Environmental and Special Offences Unit Task Force busted some criminals then in the state and arrested 39 miscreants terrorizing motorists and dealing in illicit drugs at the weekend. The suspects were arrested during a raid on black spots at Marwa Beach around Basal Mall on Admiralty Road and other adjoining areas in Lekki Phase 1 on Friday night. The spokesperson of the task force, Abdurrahim Badeyon, said in a statement he issued on Sunday that the raid was carried out in order to curb the incessant crimes committed by miscreants in that axis. At number 2, the governor of Lagos State, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, has appointed acting vice-chancellors for the 2 newly established universities in the state. The 2 acting VCs are Idowu Okuneye and Oluremi Olaleye. While Okuneye, a professor of education, will serve as the acting vice-chancellor for Lagos State University of Education, Ijanikin, Olaleye, a holder of PhD in microbiology, will serve in the same capacity at the Lagos State University of Science and Technology, Ikorodu. According to the special advisor on education to Mr. Sanwo-Olu, Tokunbo Wahab, the appointment will be for a period of 3 months. At number 1, President Muhammadu Buhari has dismissed the notion that the All Progressives Congress lacks the capacity to conduct its national convention on March 26th, saying the party will surprise its critics. Buhari said this while speaking with State House correspondents shortly before departing the presidential wing of the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, Abuja, for London on Sunday. He assured that the ruling party had the capacity to handle its issues. Always remember to wear your mask, wash your hands, and stay safe. That's all for now. See you next time on What's Happening.
Meanwhile, the Russian officials are scrambling to deal with the effects of sanctions that have been imposed by the Western nations. The penalties levied have already started to hurt Russia's economy. The Russian government has announced that retailers will limit the sales of essential food items, and this is being done to limit black market speculation and further ensure the affordability of food across the country. The announcement has come after the Trade and Industry Ministry said that there have been cases of essential food items being purchased in volumes larger than necessary for private consumption, for subsequent resale later when the prices are higher. And in a bid to stop the hoarding of essential commodities, the ministry in a statement has said, and I quote, "Trade organizations representing retailers have proposed that retailers should be allowed to limit the volume of specific goods that are sold to an individual at any given point of time." The Moscow has been hit with a damaging package of financial and cultural penalties by the Western nations since the Kremlin launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine. And the Russian Central Bank in recent days has also taken some unprecedented steps to shore up its struggling economy and the ruble. Now, the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has made some fresh appeals to the Western nations, especially the United States and the NATO military alliance, to declare a no-fly zone over Ukraine. This as different cities across Ukraine are witnessing a sharp rise in the number of missile strikes and also bombings from fighter jets of the Russians. In one such case, a barrage of Russian missiles have raced to the ground a civilian airport in central Ukraine. The Ukrainian government has confirmed that the Havrishko airport in Vinnytsia was completely destroyed after being bombed by 8 rockets that were fired by the Russian forces. Now, these are some of the videos that have been released by the Ukrainian emergency services that show the firefighters trying to put out the blaze after the rockets that were fired by the Russians hit the airport. Now, the Ukrainian firefighters were seen fighting the fire at the fuel and storage depot in the Vinnytsia airport. Now, Russia's defense ministry later confirmed that the strikes were indeed carried out by it, with spokesperson Igor Konashenkov releasing a statement where he said, and I quote him here, "On the 6th of March, an airfield of the Ukrainian Air Force in Vinnytsia was put out of action with long-range, high-precision weapons." Now, what is of course worrying is that this latest attack has taken place in the western area of central Ukraine, far from Russia and the Belarusian borders, an area that has in fact seen few such airstrikes, indicating that Russia could be expanding its operations across the country. The second week of the assault on Ukraine has seen increasingly deadly attacks as Russians are inching closer to Kiev. Ukraine, of course, continues to accuse Moscow of indiscriminately targeting the residential areas, while Russia has maintained that it has not launched any attack on civilians so far. But the ground reality seems to be very different. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.
Tonight, Russian forces are intensifying airstrikes and the shelling of cities across Ukraine. Their targets reportedly include civilians. Today, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said Russia's actions could constitute a war crime. This video in the city of Irpin, just west of the capital of Kyiv, where people ran for their lives to escape attacks. Mortar fire also claimed the lives of a mother and 2 children. Today, Ukraine's president urging resistance with Russian forces closing in on Kyiv. This airport near the city up in flames. And in Russia, new anti-war protests and crackdowns. More than 4,600 people arrested in over 60 cities. And tonight, more sanctions targeting Russia from global corporate giants. Our coverage tonight begins with CBS's Charlie D'Agata in Kyiv.
There is no escape from Mariupol. The temporary ceasefire that should have allowed the safe evacuation of as many as 200,000 residents was shattered by renewed shelling for the second day in a row, both sides blaming each other for opening fire. The southern port city has been the target of a sustained and merciless Russian bombardment for days. The city's hospital can't keep up with the amount of civilian casualties. A young man rushes into the emergency room, cradling his 18-month-old son, injured in shelling. Emergency teams do everything they can, but the little boy can't be saved. His mother breaks down in tears and disbelief, almost collapsing in grief, and then kisses her child goodbye. Russia's offensive has gathered pace, advancing ever closer to the capital itself. Residents are digging in and preparing for the worst. Volunteers provide hot drinks and stew. Last week, 25-year-old Stanislav was a drummer. Now he's making Molotov cocktails.
What help do you want from America?
From America, we need shotguns, actually, from them, and people, the army here.
You want weapons?
Yes.
You see barricades like this all over the city. They're very basic, just railroad ties, old tires, some fencing, anything to provide some defense.
And look at this line of men by the thousands who may have never raised a rifle, ready to fight. And here's why. This is Irpin, roughly 15 miles outside the capital. Incoming missiles send men, women, and children scrambling to get away, even as explosions ring out.
Charlie D'Agata once again showing us the harsh realities of war. Charlie, going back to Mariupol, a ceasefire collapsed 2 days in a row. Is another attempt even possible?
Jerika, you have to hope so, because the ceasefire has been agreed upon. It has been for the past couple of days, and a humanitarian corridor. They're just not adhering to it. One sign of hope, there are peace talks that are going to be taking place between Ukrainian and Russian delegations tomorrow.
And Charlie, before you go, if I could ask another quick question. Where you are in Kyiv, what are people on the ground saying who've decided to stay? Obviously, 2 weeks ago, there was a different sentiment. Many people didn't even think what we're seeing was truly possible.
Oh, Jerika, they know it's coming now, and they are preparing for it. You know, men are arming themselves, those barricades that you've seen throughout the city. They are grimly determined and serious about what is to happen. The volunteers are all pitching in terms of trying to get food, Molotov cocktails to the front line. So they are all digging in, and they really feel like it's just a matter of days before Russian forces are encroaching on this city.
Charlie D'Agata in Kyiv for us. Thank you.